Howdy ho, folks. Howdy ho, America and points beyond. Who has power and what are they doing with it? Politics is not a natural act.
That's right.
That's right.
I must admit, I never heard that one from you, gentlemen.
There's so many feisty fighters against the greedheads and boneheads. So grab a libation, join the conversation. It's the personal side of politics, and it is surprisingly tasty. Personal again. Here we are at the Hightower Lowdown Happy Hour at the Chat and Chew Cafe, which happens to be my kitchen, which is what is behind me here, and gathered around the round table with our guests today, and we want you to pull up as well and be a part of the conversation. We are reaching you through the magic of the interweb, which includes Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Free Speech TV. All across America, and as I say, points beyond. We're out there where the people are, trying to bring you stories that you're not going to hear on the nightly news, you're not going to read that much about in your local newspaper or the national newspapers. Indeed, it is the news of the people themselves, the people who are making news because they are making progress, daring to challenge the powers that be on behalf of the powers that ought to be, which is you and me. Yeah, so that's what we're here to talk about. And get a libation. I've got mine right here. I've got my Old Mission beer, Old Mission Brewing Company. They're out of Portland, Oregon, and also Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Two wonderful towns. I've been to both, and we welcome viewers and participants from there. And as usual, we've got Deanna Zant with us, the multicolored hair lady who can connect you right here to the round table and the Chat and Chew crew. So tune in, offer your insights, your stories that you might have, and I bet you have some of them tonight because we're going to be talking about the post office. Yeah, right where you live, there is a post office. There may be more than one post office, and there are hundreds, thousands of postal workers who are doing astonishing, really, work. And we're going to talk with some folks tonight about that. But we want to, again, to hear from you. This postal service, many people don't know it, but it's actually written into the Constitution of the United States. Yes, the only federal agency that is in the Constitution is the United States Postal Service. 246 years ago it began, and it has been an essential middle-class ladder and stabilizer with good union jobs in our country for all those many, many years. And it is truly a service. We got a lot of agencies that claim to be service, the Internal Revenue Service, for example. And we have the Selective Service, which will draft you and send your ass to Afghanistan, and et cetera. But then we have the Postal Service. For a 55-cent stamp, go down and buy yourself a 55-cent stamp. And with that stamp, postal workers in the post office and letter carriers and rural letter carriers will deliver that piece of mail from you to any place, anywhere in the United States every single workday of the work and of the year. And by the way, they send everything. You might not know it, but you can send astonishing things by mail. You can send hula hoops. Yeah, you don't have to put it in a box. Just put a stamp on a hula hoop, and the post office will deliver it for you. Sombreros, such as this, can be mailed without being in a box. I wouldn't dare do that because there's a crush issue involved there. Rubber balls, potatoes, tomatoes. Yes, you could put a stamp on this little jewel right here, pulled right out of my garden, and send that off to Poughkeepsie, New York, or wherever you want it to go. A coconut. There's a post office in Hawaii that specializes in shipping coconuts without a package. You just put a stamp and an address on the coconut. They'll help you do that, and off it goes. All kinds of things, and surprising things. For example, children. Yeah. Is your kid bothering you now? Mail it off to grandma. You can do that. Well, you used to be able to do that. You can't anymore. But here's a picture from back in 1913 or so of, yes, you could mail a child. And it happened more than once. Some parents tried to send their children through the mail. One of them mailed their 8-month-old son, James, to his grandmother. He was just shy of the 11-pound limit of that mail weight, and it cost his parents 15 cents to send James across the city to the grandma. Another was a 4-year-old girl named Charlotte May Pierstorff, and she even became part of a children's book called Mailing May. So this is an astonishing service, and astonishing not just because of what it does, but because of the people who do it. And that's why I've invited Mark Dimondstein to be with us here tonight. Mark is the president of the American Postal Workers Union. He's uglier than an elbow wrinkle, as you'll see, but he does for the heavy lifting. Mark is a terrific fighter for working people and for the public at large. Mark Dimondstein, thanks for being with us.
Well, Brother Hightower, it's a great pleasure. Thanks so much for having us on, and more importantly, thanks for everything you do with and for the people.
Well, and that is why we're talking about the post office tonight, because it is of, by, and for the people. And when you came in as president of APWU just a few years ago, you brought together to go into the negotiations with the Postal Service, a negotiation that normally involves management and labor. But you brought in the public. You brought me in, Danny Glover was there, several members of Congress, and et cetera. Why was that? What was the point you were making?
Well, the point is, and we want management to clearly understand this, the Postal Service belongs to the people of the country. It's a national treasure. And when we're at the bargaining table for a decent agreement, a decent union contract, it's not just about postal workers. Good jobs, good union jobs are vital to the workers, to our families, to our communities, and our country. But it's more than about us. So we wanted to send a very clear message that we're not at the bargaining table alone. And the APWU, the American Postal Workers Union, is also bargaining for the well-being of the postal customer. And we bring proposals to the bargaining table to improve service, to expand service, and serve the people of the country ever better and ever greater for generations to come. So we have sent a powerful message at the bargaining table that the people of the United States and the postal workers and unions are in this together.
And the beauty of that is that the people are not just is not just part of a negotiation, and your negotiations are not just a part of a postal office. They are literally of the people. There's 31,000 post offices across the country, delivering mail by boat, by mule, actually, out in Arizona, in the Grand Canyon out in Arizona. They take a mule down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon to a particular tribe of Native Americans down there to deliver the mail. It goes to the highest of high rises and to the smallest towns in our country. And that's why the Postal Service is an appreciated service, because it is very visible, it is very useful to the people. That is why it has, get this, a 91% approval rating by the American people. Even I don't have a 91% approval rating.
So, yeah, I actually joke with people that I can't get that approval rating from my own children.
Yeah, right.
And it's very important, Jim, that that's throughout the political spectrum. Right to left, left to right, everything in the middle. It's basically equal amongst the people of the country, of a favorable rating and a trust in postal workers and the public postal service.
Well, with that, let's bring in a postal worker. somebody who's out there on the front lines every day in a post office up in the western region of New York State. And that would be Lori Cash. Lori, thanks for being with us. Happy to have you at the round table here.
Thank you so much for having me. Cheers to you,
and
Jim.
what is
Thanks for
and
having
what
me
is
today.
what is that little libation you've got in your glass?
This is a beautiful vodka cranberry, and it is created with Western New York's own Black Button Distillery all-American corn vodka, created right in Rochester, New York.
All right, little of the local goodies.
And incidentally, a little side note on Black Button Distillery. At the beginning of the pandemic, when we were having a difficult time getting hand sanitizer, Black Button supplied hand sanitizer to all of the post offices in the Western New York district.
You can sanitize your hands or you can drink it. Either way.
Absolutely.
Way to go. I love it.
They took care of us, so we take care of them.
A great product. Thank you. I'm glad you're doing that. Now, Laura, you are 23 years working for the Postal Service.
Yes, I am.
Back in 2011, you began as a shop steward, and then in 2011 you became president of the local out there. And what does that involve? What does it mean? I'm president of the local Postal Workers Union.
President of the local in a local like mine means I am a part-time president. So I work full-time at the post office every day. And then when I leave the post office, I represent 175 small offices in the Western New York area. And I represent clerk craft employees and maintenance craft employees, which means I go out and help if there are issues, labor management issues between the employees and management. I try to iron out the wrinkles between management and maintenance and the employees before it becomes a grievance. And if necessary, then I file grievances on their behalf as well. I'm supported by a wonderful executive board and a great group of stewards throughout my local. And so basically that's what I do. I spend half of my time taking care of the customers in the post office, and I spend the rest of my time taking care of my membership.
Well, let's talk about those customers because they come up to the postal. There's all sorts of, the right wing tries to spread nasty jokes about the postal workers. Necessarily, they're rude and they're crude and it's just a bad thing. What is your experience? I mean, how do people feel? You deal with people every day, walking into a post office. How do people feel?
I do. We get wonderful feedback from our customers. I work in a small community, and what's nice about that is we get to know our customers. We reach out to our businesses. We have worked with them for so long. Like myself, I've worked in the same office for 20 years. So I've really gotten to know my customers that move in and out of the community. I know my small business owners that have been there and have watched their businesses grow, and unfortunately watched some of them leave and some new ones pop up. But over the years, we've had very positive feedback from our customers. They come to us when they're looking for the best way to expand their service and their shipping needs. They come to us when there's a package that's gone missing and they need us to help them find it. They come to us when they need to get their paychecks to their employees. They come to us in a snowstorm when everything is backed up and they need help trying to find it. So we get very positive, very, very positive feedback from our customers. I have not had an overwhelming amount of bad customer experiences. The majority of mine have been happy. Hence, I've been there for 23 years and I keep going back.
And a lot of people don't realize how dependent folks are on the post office. People counting on their checks to come in, their Social Security payments and things like that. People are looking for their prescriptions to arrive, dependent on the timely arrival of those prescriptions and et cetera. And yet, we had a little boo-boo last year with the post office. Not with the post office itself, but with the politicians who oversee the post office and indeed intruded, in the case of Donald Trump, into the postal affairs of the American people. Donnie Trump announced that he was going to fix the post office.
He fixed us.
Yeah, well, what folks didn't realize is he was using fix in the same way your veterinarian uses fix when you take in your dog. So your dog can explain that to you. But that was an astonishing effort to usurp the public service of this public agency, and yet he didn't get it done. Mark Dimondstein, why wasn't he able? He was president of the United States. He was making all kinds of big changes. Why couldn't he get this one done?
Well, I think, Jim, it was great resistance on the part of the people of the country. We have a grand alliance of which the Hightower Lowdown is part of, over 80 national groups and organizations that have united to save our public postal service. And Trump's plan was an insidious and wide open plan. He put it in writing in June 2018. His plan was to dismantle, break up, and sell the public postal service to private companies. And he was deadly serious about that. But the people of the country are very serious about their support for the public postal service. So Trump did not get his way. Now, he did damage. He certainly hurt our brand. He called us all a joke. Here are the postal workers out courageously in a pandemic under the most stressful of conditions, like all other essential workers were, binding the people of the country together, carrying out with dedication the mission under these circumstances. And the President of the United States shamefully called us a joke. And that's counter to how the people of the country feel. So he didn't accomplish his aims. There's still dangers out there. There have been before. I've said many times that our problems in defense of the public postal service did not start with Donald Trump. They're not going to end with Donald Trump, but they sure intensified under his presidency. But the good thing about it, Brother Hightower, is it also aroused the people.
Right.
That this is something that we want, this is something we need, this is something we love, and we're not going to let anybody take something that belongs to us away from us. So it certainly alerted the people. It's very easy to take the Postal Service for granted. I'm sure I've done it many times in my life, where we just think our mail is going to be there every day, that the local post office will be there every day. And I think between the pandemic and Donald Trump's open attacks on the public postal service, I think it's been a wake-up call and a new level of appreciation on the part of the people.
And that's all the people. That's
All
the
the people.
Republicans as well. And that's an interesting thing because, indeed, Trump did not get his way, and Trump is gone. But he left a lump of a Postmaster General in charge. And I know you don't want to be negative about this, but this is a fellow whose only qualification to become Postmaster General was that he was a major donor to Donald Trump, and had been an advocate of privatizing the various functions of the Postal Service. And he did indeed step in and made major moves to try to do that. But then he had to hit pause because the people responded. And again, these were just regular folks who said, "What the hell are you talking about? You know, this is my medicine's going to come in the mail, my check's coming in the mail. I got to stay in touch with my grandchildren, you know, et cetera, et cetera." And at the local postal service, people love their letter carriers, for example. We had one in our office here in Austin of the Hightower Lowdown. It's on the east side of town, and it's 02 zip code, 78702 is the zip code. And our letter carrier, an ex-hippie and not so ex, actually, he would tote that bag, and he would come in there. He rode his bicycle to the main post office. He could commute by bicycle, or even walk to the postal office at the time. It's now been moved, but then he could get the mail and deliver it, and he got to know the people in the neighborhood there. So much so that he had O2 tattooed on the calves of his legs. One calf had O, the other one had 2. And he would come into our office. He found out that it was the source of the Lowdown, and he became a subscriber to the Lowdown. And he would come in and chat with us, chat with Melody, particularly in our office, and talk up, what are we doing? What's next? What are we talking about next? Let's get together here. Let's rally. Let's do something. And that to me is a testimonial to the importance of postal workers, is that they are not just doing their job at their best. They're involved in the community and they're communicating with the community, and that often means for a lot of older people, for example, and lower income neighborhoods, they're the only people that those folks might see during the day. Might be that letter carrier, and that letter carrier can check up and say, there's something wrong here in this house, and that happens a lot. They're
Absolutely.
part of the
And
community. Go ahead.
you're so right there, saying that the community and the postal workers were all together, because the customers weren't having it when this was going on last summer. We saw so much customer support in the coming into our retail offices and also with our carriers on the street. It was amazing, the outpouring from our communities when they thought that their service was in jeopardy. And we had customers coming in asking us, what can we do? How can we help you? What would be the best thing for us to do? Can we call DeJoy directly? Can we volunteer? We had people wanting to come in and sort packages with us to make sure that the mail went out so that everything was delivered. It was amazing, the support we had. The American people, I think when he came in, and understand, he was appointed by Trump, and yes, there was definitely an agenda. But when he came in, I don't think he realized how important and what a treasure the Postal Service is to the American people, and how much they were willing to do to hold on to it and to protect it, and to protect their postal workers as well. They would bring us water, they would bring us gift cards, they brought us coffee, because they knew the hours we were working, just trying to get through the pandemic and the amount of increase in mail through the pandemic. So there was no way that we as postal workers were going to have any of that. We knew from the time it started, when we saw it coming down, he was not going to win. It wasn't going to happen. We were not going to allow our reputation to be destroyed. We were not going to let them win. We were going to get those packages out. We were going to service our customers and take care of our people, because they are our people. And those ballots at election time, those ballots were getting delivered. Come hell or high water, there was no way they were stopping the ballots.
We're going to come back to that vote by mail issue in just a moment, but I just want to jump in based on what you're saying, Laurie. The personal experience there's a little town called Valentine, Texas, down on the Mexican border, near the Big Bend, and it's a tiny town, but a major feature of that town, and indeed of the whole county, is the post office in Valentine, and that post office gets I forget what it is, something like 30,000 pieces of mail that are shipped to it around February the 15th, Valentine's Day, to be able to have them resend that mail with a Valentine postal stamp on it. So, and then when the post office there got overwhelmed with the mail, local people would come in and do just what you said. They would help sort the mail and do the heavy lifting or whatever had to be done to make sure that got out. An Amazon warehouse is not going to get that kind of support from local folks, and that support comes honestly from the people themselves. So let's talk a little bit about that, because that was largely the motivation of Trump's effort to gut the post office, was vote by mail. Mark, talk about that. I mean, is it as dangerous? Is it as fraud-ridden as the right wing, including legislators here in my state of Texas who are ramming through a voter theft piece of legislation, a huge, comprehensive piece of legislation, to basically take the vote away from people. And it includes, fundamentally, it includes not allowing people to vote by mail, or at least making that next to impossible.
Jim, it's actually just the opposite of what the right wing says. And it's really part of the big lie. It's just a big lie that somehow this election was rigged, that somehow mail balloting was the essence of why it was rigged. The facts are there to see. Vote by mail is nothing new. It goes back to the Civil War. We've been handling ballots of military personnel back to the Civil War. It's become ever more popular to the point that there's at least 5 states now that have vote by mail by law, from the dog catcher to the president. So let's just look at Oregon real quickly. 19, 20 years of vote by mail by law, over 100 million ballots cast. You know how many cases of voter fraud? 15.
15.
That's less than one
Wow.
per year. And that voter fraud is not systemic or systematic fraud. It's
Usually it's just it's a wrong address or something like that. It's clerical.
If the ballot comes to the house, the 19-year-old kid or 20-year-old kid is in college, the parent calls up, says, how do you want me to fill out your ballot? They fill out and mail it. Technically, that's voter fraud. It's that kind of thing.
Right.
So in reality, the people love it. Here's the key. We should always, no matter where we stand on the political spectrum, we should all be able to unite around our cherished right to vote.
Absolutely.
And mail balloting gives people access to the ballot box. Hard fought for, blood, sweat, and tears. Access to the ballot box. When this country was founded, almost nobody had access to the ballot box. But we're still under attack. So here we were in a pandemic, and postal workers in our union is very proud of what happened. Here we are in a pandemic where the only way tens of millions of people could safely have access to the ballot box was with a successful vote by mail. And I have to say that the PMG himself, once there was enough resistance, once there was really an uprising amongst the people of the country in defense of the right to vote, he actually did the right thing. And we had a whole series of efforts around the country, in the locals. We weren't moving ballots because we said, oh, maybe that's a ballot for this one or that one. We were proudly moving ballots as part of our civic duty to the people of the country and getting it there on time. We weren't worried about how somebody voted in that envelope. We just wanted to make sure that vote got there on time, that vote was counted, and that person's voice was heard. So it was very successful, and it shows how great the post office can be when it's being the best that we can be. And vote by mail showed that. And what's happened since is shameful, outlandish, and it's disgusting. There's a reaction of those who are not happy with the results of the election, who are now, I think, Jim, help me out if I'm wrong, I think in 43 states now, including yours in Texas as we're speaking, that have instituted new voter suppression laws aimed at vote by mail and aimed at depriving working people, people of color, seniors, youth, access to the ballot box. Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to pick the voters rather than allowing voters to pick their elected representatives.
You said something important there that I want to jump in on because, there's, first of all, it's not voter suppression, it is voter theft. That's what they're doing. They're stealing the vote. And they're stealing not just black people's votes. The right wing wants to say that's what it's about. No, they're stealing old people's votes. They're stealing student votes. They're stealing union neighborhood votes. They're stealing, et cetera, down the line. Ultimately, they'll steal your vote. And that's what we're fighting against, really. And I want to go into how do we make that fight? And I know y'all are doing that, and I want to talk about the new effort that you've got underway, but also just to recognize that again, what the Postal Service means to people. Let's go to Deanna's. Sending, y'all aren't seeing this as we're chatting, but there's all kinds of chats coming across from America, people pouring out their sentiments of support for the post office on our interweb communication devices here, whatever those gizmos are, but nonetheless they seem to work. So that's important. So Deanna, tell us what are people saying?
Holy cow. Well, now that we're on a million different platforms tonight, which is super exciting for a lot of reasons, we're getting comments from all over the country. We've got our two favorite regulars that I really love JAMA in Nebraska, and we've got Bob in Southeastern Appalachian section of Ohio. That's my people. And we've got a lot of really great questions. Actually, if I can scroll back up and find it, Vegematic on YouTube asked this question that said, were the sorting machines sold for scrap? Which I thought was kind of entertaining. But the amount of love that comes through for the post office here is just unbelievable. And actually, Hightower, I do have one of those stories of that you can mail anything.
Oh, yeah. What is that?
Yeah, my aunt Maggie, who is one of the funniest people on the planet, sometime in the 60s mailed an egg to her friend across town in rural upstate New York. Yeah, upstate New York.
The boiled egg?
They don't. She refuses to say whether it was actually boiled or not. But the postal workers didn't know if it was boiled or not, and it arrived to her friend intact. So
that is
go post office.
In other words, Deanna, we did not scramble the egg, did we?
Did not. No. It was amazing. No. But yeah. And just as a reminder to everybody watching, leave us your shout outs, your comments. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know what you're drinking. We want to hear everything. So share away.
Well, maybe not everything, but as much as you're willing to reveal.
Yeah.
On the Twitterverse.
No pictures.
No pictures. But,
no pictures.
Yeah, that's important to say no pictures.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure y'all have seen it all in the post office.
Oh, yeah.
Lori.
One more thing before I go, before you take me back off again. I do want to mention that it is possible to stay in touch with Hightower on a more regular basis than every other 2 weeks.
How could you
Obviously, you can find us on all the socials as you're watching now, but the best thing to do is to join our email list. You can join for what? How much does it cost?
Nothing. It costs zero. Nada.
Go to hightowerlowdown.org/email. I'll put that up on the screen in a second once I stop talking, and join us there. You'll get a weekly email with all the updates, what we're reading, what Hightower's thinking, a little behind the scenes stuff that you don't get on our socials. So once again, hightowerlowdown.org/email. Join us there.
Hey, Deanna, if I can jump in, if you talk to the 02 letter carrier, 78702, if Jim asks him, he now has another tattoo, H on one leg, L on the other for Hightower Lowdown. And just so you know, the main gifts that my wife and I give every year to our closest friends and our closest brothers and sisters at our headquarters at the Union is we give the gift of the Hightower Lowdown, because that's a gift to keep on giving the whole year around, and it's an invaluable gift. So we are big fans.
It is.
That's true because my husband has one. So I know for a fact that is the truth.
I love that so much. Yes, you can get print issues in your mail that will be delivered to you by these folks right here. These folks, postal workers, will bring us to your actual physical mailbox. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
And now we've got to go to work for postal workers so that they can keep working for us. And Mark, you've got a Grand Alliance, it's called, which is a consortium of, I don't know, dozens and dozens of groups that are supportive of the postal office and the postal service, really. And standing forth, and now you're going into negotiations for a new contract for your union. And once again, you've brought the public into the front of that, and you're going to have a gathering later this month or next month in Washington, at your headquarters or at the place where the negotiation will take place.
Yeah, it's going to be mostly a virtual gathering this time, but some of us
because for obvious reasons. But just like we're all here together tonight, we'll all be together there. And so what do you see? I mean, are you optimistic about where we're headed? Some say, well, maybe we turn it all over to Amazon. They can take care of it.
I am optimistic, Jim. I think we got a lot of challenges. Some of them are changing mail habits. Some of them are the internet. We have a saying: the internet giveth and the internet taketh. Certainly, letter mail is less, but packages are up because people shop more online. There are policies that the post office has inflicted on the people, particularly going back to 2010, 2011, that slowed down mail. So there are definitely some challenges. But the reason I'm optimistic is a fewfold. One is we're in a fight that the people really support. And that gives me great encouragement that it's a fight that we're going to continue to win. Secondly, it's really the Postal Service, the public Postal Service, is really a small d democratic right of the people. And so that means whoever we are, wherever we live, whatever our status, whatever our nationality, whatever our color, our skin, whatever our gender, whatever we are, we have an equal right to the same service and to use it the way that it fits us. And thirdly, because of that, because the people are really on the side of the common good, the defense of the public commons that the Postal Service does represent so deeply. We have a lot of bipartisan support amongst elected representatives throughout the political spectrum at what they would call both sides of the aisle. I hope someday soon we have many sides of the aisle. But so there is also a lot of political support. So and then we also are working very hard, and the Grand Alliance is very much with this, to institute new and expanded services such as more financial services, more government services, all sorts of things like licensing and hunting and internet access and ATM, whatever it is. And I think and by the way, charging stations, if we're going to move to an EV and electrical vehicle society and deal with the fossil fuel emissions and this crisis that we're facing as human beings and maybe all species, the Postal Service can play a role in that. And one way they can play a role in it is not just have an electric fleet themselves, but have charging stations and be part of a grid where people who are traveling can go to a local post office and fill up their tank, so to speak. And that also continue to binds the people of the country together and grows that special bond with the people of the country with this public service. So I am optimistic. I think we can overcome these challenges. Service has been bad. It's something that every single postal worker that I've ever met, it's our DNA to provide the best service we can, to treat the mail as our own. It's not up to par. Management needs to step up and fix it. Postal workers always do our part, but management has to lead that part of it. But even with all of those, I think we got a bright future with people like you and the Grand Alliance and the way the people of the country feel.
Well, but because the people support you because you support the people. That's what it comes down. It's like any business. If you got something that people want, then they're going to be there, and that's what's happening. You mentioned the conversion to well, really it's a climate change issue. The conversion of our vehicles. I had not realized, but the post office has the largest fleet of trucks in the country. Bigger than any freight company or et cetera, et cetera. And this new piece of legislation that's been introduced with bipartisan support, 10 Republicans have signed on as sponsors, main sponsors of this legislation, includes converting the post office fleet to electric vehicles. That's just part of what's possible. And that's what excites me. It's not just, can we just get back to where we were? No, let's move forward. We can be aggressive. You mentioned one thing there that deserves a whole show, and we'll do that down the road. And that is, why don't we have the post offices, 31,000 post offices in virtually certainly every city and town and county and in the country. What if they were to be banks?
Yes.
Why do we have to rely on the Wall Street bankers as the only source of our
Absolutely.
checking and our saving accounts
Yep.
and our transactions, and particularly for low income people who either have no bank in their area, cannot afford the service. Talk a little bit about maybe both of you, Lori. You probably because one. Most people don't know it, but the post office already is the source of money orders, a major source of money orders that you can buy that. So they have the ability and they have the infrastructure already in place to be able to provide basic banking services to millions of people who now don't get it.
Right. And we do sell money orders, and we sell a lot of money orders. We have a lot of people that come in, and that's how they pay their bills. They come in and they get money orders to pay their rent and to pay their utilities. We have a lot of businesses that use money orders to work with their customers and to exchange funds with their customers. And when you look across the country at the amount of rural areas and the amount of urban areas where we have these payday loan sharks that are just raking people over the coals with fees. People are just trying to cash their paycheck. They don't have access to banking. They don't have the ability to open a bank account for whatever reason. They may have issues with identification. They may have credit issues, but they don't have the ability to open a bank account and to sustain a bank account due to fees or minimum balances or whatever banks, whatever requirements banks have.
400% interest charged by some of these outfits.
Exactly. So, and this is a person that can't afford to pay that type of a fee. By the time they cash their paycheck, they can't pay their bills because they've paid this enormous fee, this payday loan shark, just to be able to cash a check. So if we can offer these services to our urban areas that are hit very, very hard, to our poorest areas where people are struggling just to cash their check, we can not only expand services of the Postal Service, but we can definitely improve the way of life of our communities. And we can help people to sustain and get back on their feet and become more financially stable. So it's not only a service that will help the Postal Service to increase revenue and to sustain for the future, but we can help our communities to rebuild as well.
And by the way, if you think, well, loan sharks, that's this little fly-by-night outfits sitting over there in a storefront. No, they're all connected to Wall Street banks. Wall Street banks are the creators of these institutions, and they are the ones who are ultimately collecting the money from them. So we're not taking mom and pop out of business here. We're taking on Wall Street yet again.
Right. Those check cashing fees are ridiculous. Sometimes it's half the people's check.
Jim, I couldn't have said it any better than Lori, so I'm not going to try, but I do have a little bit of good news. We're in some serious discussions with management, nothing set in stone yet, about trying some pilot programs, check cashing, put it on a postal debit card, some basic financial services like bill payments, electronic transfers of money. So we hope over the next few months, we will get some pilots started. That would be a path towards an actual postal bank at some point. The advantage of some expanded financial services, we don't need legislative action to get it done. A postal bank, savings bank, we would have to have Congress actually make a change. But we're having some very serious and productive conversations with management. We meaning the American Postal Workers Union.
And let's point out, let me just interject here, that this is not some crazy radical idea that Bernie Sanders came up with overnight. We had this for years. Talk about that. We had postal banking.
We had a postal bank for 60 plus years. It was actually a savings bank, I believe, until from 1911 to 1967, maybe. Yeah. So it's not a new idea. It's not a radical idea, although I have no problem with radical ideas either. But the effect is that we do have a long history, and it worked, and it'll work for working people today. There's between 80 and 100 million people in this country that either are unbanked or underbanked, meaning that they take care of their finances in this alternative paycheck cashing
Right.
predatory lending industry that Lori was talking about. So it affects a lot of people. And here we are, trusted, trained, ready to serve. It's really a win-win for the people.
Turn me loose. Send me in,
Absolutely.
Coach. Send me in. We
Right.
can do
And we
this.
charge reasonable fees so they can come in, and the fees are reasonable, like any average American would be able to pay. And people are able to come in and do their banking and pay their bills and still have extra money at the end of the day instead of handing it over to someone who is ripping them off.
And that's
And
just
by the way,
one more little thing is that caught my attention. What Lori was just saying is that the post offices are a community center, and they could become a major community center, maybe
Absolutely.
with coffee shops and I don't know, beer. Probably not, but nonetheless.
I think we could get the coffee shop in.
All right, let's work for that. But people will connect, and particularly in the rural areas, as Lori was saying, you need a central point. And the post office has been that. Many of them still are, and they can be that again. And in many urban areas, you have the great old historic postal offices with incredible art within them. And instead of selling those off to developers, which has been happening, why don't we put that art back to work for the people again?
Absolutely.
Jim, if I can interject the happy hour theme. In this legislation that's both in the House of Representatives and the Senate. And by the way, I don't think the bill yet has the EV money in it. There's a separate bill, I think, that has that. Okay. But in the bill that's before the House right now is the ability of the post office to ship beer and wine. So if we get that bill passed, you may get your wish.
Yes. Right, that's right.
That's right.
Bernie Sanders has been a big proponent of that. Why? But again, most people don't know that the post office is not allowed to ship wine.
Right.
We have wine vineyards here and wineries here in the state of Texas. Just about every state does. Upstate New York, you're loaded with them there on the.
They're all along the lake up here, lakes, all along the lake.
The Finger Lakes, and so all over. And why wouldn't we be able to do that? And the truth is, of course, we can. But it has always been, by the way, the postal bank that we had until 1967 was killed by Wall Street bankers who did not want that competition.
Right.
They didn't want people to be able to go get low cost savings accounts and banking accounts. So they killed it. So there we are again with the same fundamental powers that the Hightower Lowdown and the post office and worker groups all across the country, from the lowest paid workers, farm workers, domestic workers, et cetera. It's the same power that we're building, that we're fighting against, and that's the. I think symbolically, those fights come together around a public service such as you folks are providing.
Right.
And this is our fight. I mean, our fight.
Right.
Oh, sorry. Our fight has been, for the entire postal service nationwide. But if you see, I mean, it's a pattern in this country. Every time something comes down that hurts something, it hurts our urban communities, it hurts our rural communities. And the attack on the postal service, that's exactly what it's done. So the service standard changes that happened years ago hurt the rural communities. Now these new service standard changes that are proposed are going to hurt the rural communities yet again. The communities that this is, the postal service is sometimes their only means of bringing in the articles they need to run their small businesses, to run their farms, to get basic needs for their homes, to run their household. Right. If we could add financial services into these small communities, we could definitely make these communities vibrant again. Keep the postal service there, make the services stronger, extend the services instead of pulling them back, bring our service standards back to what they should be, and we'd be building up small town America instead of knocking it down over and over and over again like this politicians seem to always want to do. You know, small town America is what puts the milk in your refrigerator and puts the steak on your table. And people need
Bingo.
to understand that. And they need to start supporting our small urban community or our small rural communities, because those communities, we need them, and we need to support the entire postal service. But I'll tell you, if these service standards come through and they keep diminishing and diminishing, those are the communities that are really going to hurt and really going to suffer.
Lori Cash for president.
I already am.
Well, right. You are. That's right. Yeah, forgot about that. In your region, you are, and that's the kind of just grassroots percolate up economics.
This is why we fight. This is why we fight.
It matters because it's people economics.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate both of you so much for what you're doing, and thank you for taking time to be with us tonight. Connect with us, Mark. What is the key website or connection point for you and the effort to restore our postal service to its full glory?
Well, people can go to agrandalliance.org or the U.S. Mail Not For Sale.org. We're also have a lot of good information on our union website, APWU.org. That's mixed in with a lot of stuff that affects postal workers, but people are welcome to come there. There's a lot of good information. We need support on getting this legislation passed. I joked a little bit about the beer and wine. It really is in there. It's not the main part of the legislation, though, but I promise you, Jim, if we get it passed, this legislation, Lori and I will find a microbrewery in New York, and we'll keep you packed for the next patent chew or whatever it is after the bill. But the main part of that bill is to do away with this onerous draconian pre-funding mandate from 2006.
Right.
It forced the post office to pay retiree health care benefits into the future rather than pay as you go like everybody else does. And the post office was doing fine. And that really defunded the postal service, opened it up for the privatizers.
It was intentional.
So the main part of the bill before Congress right now is to fix that. And if we fix that, it's not going to fix all the problems. It's not going to meet every challenge, but it'll be a big step in the right.
I see two provisions in that law that are essential. One is that get rid of this onerous, vindictive provision that was in just to kill the post office, basically, to require the post service to provide in advance the pension payments and health payments for people who are not even born yet.
Right.
Anyway, so that is one, and two is to preserve the delivery integrity of the post office, which the standard has been 1 to 3 days, and there's now an effort to try to extend that to 5 days, and they will then use that to extend it to 5-day week opening of the postal office. So all of this is shrinkage. The point being here tonight, I think, is the big message that we have is we should not be shrinking the possibilities of this wonderful agency and this wonderful group of people. We should be expanding that possibility because they can deliver.
Right.
Thank you.
And the pandemic really underscored that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It did. It did. People that didn't realize how much they needed the postal service realized it during the pandemic because boy, were they knocking on our door. So, and Jim, I'm going to interject one more thing, and I'm going to piggyback on what Mark said about the microbrewery, because my daughter, who is a school teacher by day, tends bar at the Rusty Nickel right here in Western New York, and it is a wonderful microbrewery. So when it comes time to mail you some beer, I'm going to get you some fabulous brews from the Rusty Nickel.
I'm available. Thank you, Lori Cash. Thank you, Mark Dimondstein.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Keep at 'em.
Keep up
Thank
the
you
great
for all
work.
your support.
All
We're in the
right.
battle together.
agrandalliance.com or .org.
Yeah, a Grand Alliance.
All of those things. A Grand Alliance. Join us. Let's preserve our own and extend our postal possibilities. Thank you all. Thanks for joining us. See you in a couple of weeks.